Hysteria Agent is a series that aims to capture the fears and realizations related to the human psyche that have been uncovered during the COVID-19 pandemic. Drawing from a similar idea to Albert Camus' novel, The Plague, which is in the form of a philosophical thought experiment on how humans react to mortality highlighting events like a pandemic. A plague, in a sense, acts like a catalyst to bring the ideas of death and suffering to the forefront of one's mind, and this series looked to snapshot the specific factors that brought our minds to this commonplace. Each piece is linked through the setting of a hospital to put the viewer in the place of a frontline worker, the key observers of the horrors offered in this pandemic. In each piece, elements of surrealism, the grotesque, and unconventional perspectives were employed to link to the hysteria and draw out each of the themes of fear that steered our thoughts to those of existentialism. The first theme to raise the idea of our fragile mortality is presented in I Am the Virus, which shows the fear of being infected or becoming a carrier of the virus. This piece aimed to pull into the paranoia every one of us felt when the virus first arrived. The stigma began to grow and divide people, as initially everyone in public became a threat to our health. Thoughts began to twist and turn on us, much like the hallway the figure stands in. A silent prejudice started to spread at the same rate of the virus, as we began to demonize people and the space they occupied. The second thought of fear that followed the first was that of contracting the virus and the ideas of death associated with it. This is presented in all eyes, as our universal attention was brought to a singular place or image, the end. This was the thought that put the weight of our existence into context. Our eyes and thoughts were all fixed on this situation or outcome, as the rise in cases showed no prejudice as to who was being infected. The camera was pulled further from the specific identity of who would find themselves hospitalized. The third piece depicts the hysteria and fear created with the new public health guidelines. This is illustrated in The Puppeteer, as our lives became enclosed by these rules. The guidelines became a constant reminder of the threat we were dealing with. Places of healing and recovery warped into somewhere to fear as hospitalization brought an immense amount of uncertainty to one's existence. The freedom we had on our lives was now being controlled by the pandemic, as the guidelines changed our way of life to an indefinite future. The fourth and final piece, King of Limbs, illustrates the fear of touch and physical contact. Social bubbles were enforced and humans were required to isolate from other people. Yet this provided another opportunity to reflect on the importance of human interaction. We were pulled away from each other as our hands in contact became a threat to our neighbor's health. The need for each other grew, yet the care for others' safeties overshadowed this aspect. Ultimately, this series explores how we initially thought our suffering as individual or unique. The year transpired to dissipating our indifference towards each other to understanding it was a common struggle, which is what mortality is, a common struggle we all share at all times. This virus allowed everyone a chance to come to terms with and reflect on our fragile existence and what it really means to be alive. The heightened absurdities and despair brought forth from this pandemic might leave a bitter taste upon initial reflection, but think of it as a catalyst to a truth that is eternally with us. Moving forward with a vaccine on the horizon, some might leave this lesson in 2020, but everyone who has made it to this day has made a collective choice to fight against the pain that comes with death and suffering, and to continue living together and for each other.